very cool. Happy, happy to be the age I'm at. I can tell you there was times when I was younger that I thought that I might not make it this far.
Yeah, I know.
But
I still get about maybe 5, 6 around there hours of sleep a night, and then and then people will say you need to get more sleep, and I'm like, I went for years with like only 4 hours of sleep, and I was fine. And so this is like sleeping in for me.
know what you mean. You get the 7 hours and even six, it feels like, I guess to some people, an 8 hours sleep. Hey, but you know what? I read this horrible thing. Well, I'm calling it horrible. It said if you don't get 8 hours of sleep a night, that you're more likely to get dementia. So, well, I mean, I guess how will we know? So I guess I mean, I don't know. Who knows if that's true or not?
Well, I already can't remember people's names anyway, so I've always been like
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. I have a chronic case of CRS, which I can't remember the word on that. Hey, what is that amazing background?
Oh, that was a design I'd done probably about 5, 6 years ago, and that was it's a it's a kind of a, what would you call it? I had sat down one day, and I had been doing stuff with basket designs, and one day I just sat down and wanted to create something using basket designs, but not making it look like something that from a Pomo basket design, but just playing with the designs and moving around and elongating them, um, and so this was just me doing some freestyle artwork.
It makes me think of something from the Amazon.
Oh yeah,
Ever seen
yeah.
those Amazon headdress? Although those birds have longer feathers, but I don't know, just something about the colors and the design makes me think of that. Hey, by the way, I keep saying we're talking to Eric Wilder. If you've just joined us, this is Peggy's Place on KGUA in Wallala. We are on that thing called a radio, which some of you may still own, 88.3. But we're also streaming globally at kgua.org. We're on the TuneIn app and Radio Garden. And if you go to kgua.org, you can download our Air Pocket app and you can take us with you everywhere you go, anywhere in the world. And I have a feeling that our friend Scott and Tree Mercer may be listening as they're traveling across the country because that's what they do when they travel. So big shout out to them. And Eric Wilder is this amazing artist. Eric Wilder Graphics is his company. You can find it on the web and on Facebook. He is Kashaya from right here, just south of the radio station, although he lives with the bouquet of people just north of the station, and is married to the wonderful Karen Wilder. Let's see. From we could go on and on and on, but Eric has illustrated books, and he just an awesome guy. Hey, I don't know if you got any feedback, Eric, but I got a lot of feedback on last week's show, not last month's show, when you were talking about, well, just what it means to be an Indian. Eric and I never script these shows; we just chat all things Indian. And Eric was talking about the reality of having to prove yourself, and even at his age, and I got a lot of feedback, Eric. People really, you touched a lot of people's hearts and minds with that show. Did you get feedback?
No, well, I'm not from that specifically because I do have side conversations with people, but I did a Zoom with the St. Mary's College. I think it was last week,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted me to talk about my tribe and then share some of my art. But since it was a class, which was a Native American club, um, I talked about my traditional background, and then I wanted to give them a perspective from being a former tribal chairman, and some of the things that I had to deal with as far as you know um, racism even, and just people not realizing, it was weird in the fact that there are people in state government that they don't even, I mean, this is Sonoma County supervisors, and they were, not even aware that there were even still tribes um, in northwest to Sonoma County, and these are people representing us, and telling them about, meeting with this governor, um, and talking about some of the water rights and other issues, and then the governor flat out saying, well, your concern, my concern is the citizens of California and not you people. So I said, this is, the kind of things we have to deal with. I said, we're still, people think we're not here, and and they don't look at us as citizens of California. And he's like, yeah, I have to, the taxpayers are the people that I have to represent. And I'm like, we pay taxes? What are you talking about? Um, and those kind of things. And it's like, and there's there's always this push for Native people to um, be a part of the whole, I guess, as people from all people of California. Um, and so, we have, through treaty, we're able to do certain things that other people can't, and so, that's how the casino stuff happened. And, and I said, and it's hard, especially, I said one time I had talked to the press, and they asked me if we were going to build a casino. And I said, well, we have no plans. I specifically said, we have no plan to build a casino, but that doesn't mean that at some point with, that our membership may want that at some point. But right now we don't. We have a lot of work to do with our infrastructure in order to even have something like that. And so then the next day when it came out in the paper, it was like Kashaya is going to be building a casino, and saying that that's what I said, and it wasn't, and I'm like, dang, this is, and being from a leadership role, it was eye-opening, like how do you navigate that, and not, you don't have any say in what people are going to report on, what, quote you, or or it's more like you always have to educate other entities, whether it's government or businesses, that we're alive people.
Wow. So what was the class reaction?
They all liked it. That they definitely were appreciative of me sharing that, because they don't hear that. They hear other Native people talking about the culture and the traditional ceremonies and things like that, and environmental knowledge and those kind of things, which they hear. But to hear from an experience of a tribal leader, I don't think they get to hear something like that. And for your listeners, it's the hardest part is, which I told them, I said, the hardest part is that you're sacrificing the time away from your family and your own personal things that you were used to doing to help your tribe. And your harshest critics are your own people. That's the hardest part. That's the hardest part, to sacrifice all that and do all the hard work, and then get criticism so much from your own people, and have to explain every little thing that you do, and that's all what I came to realize when I had another tribal council get elected in, was to assure them that, you sat on that side of the table where, you had questions, and you wanted answers, and now you're on this side, but you got to understand that our people have had all this frustration for years, and now that you're in that leadership role, you're the one that they're expecting answers from, and you can't just step into this role and have all those answers, and and then don't take it as a personal attack. And it's hard not to at first, and that our membership wants answers, and they want to see that the tribal council is trying to help them with a better life and opportunities and resources, and so it's it's not a personal attack. It's a frustration that all of our people have been feeling.
Well, I've seen that, of course, in person as well, not just with KGUA, but all over the country. And when Indians are betrayed by lawmakers and such, that leads me to two points. I mean, first, starting in reality, today's reality with the Biden administration, Deb Haaland is head of the Department of Interior, and they're talking about a new plan, and it's called the 3030 plan, I think, for working with tribes and with sovereignty. I don't know the details, but it seems like there might be a new day here in terms of respecting sovereignty, but there's so many layers deep when you deal with the Department of Interior and just the whole government, with housing and education, and I mean, you name it, economic development, healthcare. So we'll see. It remains to be seen, but I mean, it's only been has it even been 100 days yet of this administration? And we have the other side, the other party doing everything they can to disenfranchise voters, to disenfranchise anyone who isn't white, essentially. I mean, I'll just say it outright. So we're at an interesting point in history. I don't know how. None of us know how it's going to go, but this nation is so divided, and for people to show any respect for tribes, the people who believe in the past as being the only way it was supposed to be, it remains to be seen. I don't know. You have any
that's I got into a talk with somebody, and I don't want to mention their names, but they're definitely a Trump supporter, and and then they kind of said that, well, Trump was, he was in support of natives, and going on about other presidents, Democrats, that didn't do anything for natives, and and I said, well, I got the perspective now from being in tribal government and my own personal experience. I said, it's a wait and see process for me. I said, I saw one politician do something for our people, for us specifically, and that was Robert Kennedy. And I said, we didn't have running water on our reservation until he came and he saw the conditions and talked to my grandfather and my grandmother at that time, and he just turned to his aide and said, let's make this happen. And within the year we had plumbing, indoor plumbing, and running water, and a whole system where we were had a water system put in, and then and I said, and we've had Democrats and Republicans since then, and I said, and then after we had, and I said to these students too, when I was talking about that, I said, I was like, wow, there's somebody that cares about not only us, but honoring those treaties, and then within the year he was dead, and then since then, I said, we'd had Republicans and Democrats, and I said, and that was back in 1967. And I said, here I am walking out my door here in 2021. And where am I? I said, I'm still on the reservation. Our people still are living in pretty much the same conditions since then. I said, what's changed for my people? Really? I said, and then I got to be a tribal leader. And I said, and, I had representatives from the county, not even knowing that we're still here, and the governor considering us not even citizens of California. I said, I said, you can go on about Trump, you can go on about anybody. I said, but you know what? I said, I walk out the door and the things are still the same from the 70s. For me, I don't see any change really significantly yet, and so I said, you can't stand there and tell me Trump did all of this and Trump was all good. I haven't seen a difference from any president or any politician since Robert Kennedy in my life, my own experience. That's what I can say, and my own position as a tribal leader, and in dealing with governments, you know, uh, that treatment is that, and that prejudice and all of that is still there, and um, and then it's like I have a lot of good hope for this administration too, as I always do with every administration, hoping some things would change a little bit, and then it's just it's just okay. Well, what they don't understand is we have over 500 tribes across the United States, but we're all different. You make a blanket thing for everybody, but we're different people. So it's like it's a hard thing to have to make decisions for just because we're, well, for lack of a better word, Native Americans or Indians, but even the Bokea people are different from Kashaya people, and we're different from Dry Creek, so for you to say something on behalf of all Indians, and that's supposed to represent all of us, and that's a hard thing because we're all separate nations.
Well, yes, absolutely, absolutely, all separate nations, and yet there's so many. I mean, it's just huge when you try and talk to non-native people about the issues from state to state, county to county, uh, uh, federal level. In Oklahoma, we have a major attack on all the tribes because of the McGirt ruling, and what's the all the uh, uh, what's the word I'm looking for, but all the backfire from that coming at the Creeks and the Chickasaws and all the tribes there. It's just horrible what you're seeing happening there, and yet it goes on and on in all of these areas. I when I worked, and this is years ago, but I don't think it's changed at all. I remember working with, I think it was when I was actually at NPR, even, I'm not sure, but sitting at Congress in one of the congressional dining rooms with, I think, a New Mexico senator, and working with one of the tribes there, and they're fighting so hard for their treaty rights, and we're all sitting at the table, and he's assuring them that he's getting ready to go into the hearing rooms, and he's going to go protect their water rights and do everything he can for them. And so we all finished having coffee, went into that hearing room, that congressional hearing room on water rights, and he just sold them out. Just had sat there and outright lied to them for an hour, and walked in the door and sold off their water rights, and they all got up and walked out. And that was so, to me, the epitome of what it's like working with a lot of those senators. And now they don't even pretend. They don't even pretend that they're going to do anything for Indians. That guy did. There's a few really good guys, but not that many. And still, unfortunately, that was just typical scene for what happens with tribal leaders today, and in the past and today in Congress. I don't want to go back into the Trump era, although the news keeps putting his face on TV and everywhere all the time. He hated Indians. hated Indians. He hated their casinos. He hated them because, he wasn't a good businessman anyway, but he blamed his failures in Atlantic City on Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun. He, made racist statements constantly about Indians. So we know he did it with other people. So that's just hooey to be nice about it, to say that he cared about Indians. He doesn't care about anybody. And his party is proving that they don't care about poor people, as they're trying to stop Biden from giving poor people help right now, saying that's just going to disincentivize people from working. That's ridiculous, because you've got people who can't pay their bills because of what the Republicans did, giving all the tax breaks, and with COVID, people losing jobs. So getting, whatever it is, $1,200 to help pay your bills, buy some books for your kids to go to school, to get some health care. And they're saying, oh, this is going to disincentivize workers. Just so disingenuous, totally dishonest. Well,
but there are people that are coming forward now and wanting to honor, us being on land first and all of that. And and I'm like, okay, well, and then me and a couple other people, had talked about that a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean really for changing for our people? But it's I just look at it as an opportunity to educate, especially since there is more of an awareness of wanting to acknowledge that. I want to take it a step further and say, okay, well, you know what? We're still here. And this is what we have, and I can come at it from an art background. I can come at it from a traditional and leadership background. But I think it's a good opportunity to educate people on our people, and bridge that gap to be friends and work together and see each other as in a different light than we're used to. That's I just was at a business that they asked me if I could design a mural, and they wanted to teach about some elements to teach about the history of the people here that have lived here.
In the county or the state?
In here, in the area of Point Arena.
Really local.
Yeah, and and some of their ideas are, I understand, but then for me, I'm like, well, I'm thinking about what kind of elements can I put into this design that will not only show our knowledge of and history of this area, but to say that we're still here, that this isn't only historical. It's the present. It's on now. We're here, but yeah, I'm waiting for the inspiration to hit me, figure out how to do that visually,
I had a non-Indian person step into the office, really wrote to me an email, I got to talk to you, I want to talk to you. I was like, okay, let's see what's going to happen here. So this man who recently moved into the area and bought many of the buildings downtown here in Gualala. And what he wanted to talk to me about was he wanted there to be an alternative path route to go over to the trail that goes behind Surf, the one that RCLC built. And he wanted us to put up a new sign that was a trail marker that gave the history of the Pomo. So he comes to us, not sure why. He needs to be talking to both RCLC and the tribes, whomever. But, and he also wanted to put in a particular place that was kind of an odd place. And so, I don't know, there's the sentiment of having the history, but no clue about how you go about doing anything like that and who you should talk to. Hey, I want to switch gears for a second here. It's related to what we're talking about,
Hmm.
but you want to talk about contemporary Indians. And by the way, you're listening to KGUA in Wallala. This is Peggy's Place, and this is the Tuesday that we always talk with Eric Wilder. Is this the second Tuesday? Yes, second
Yeah.
Tuesday. Every month we talk with Eric Wilder, artist, former tribal chairman, historian, all kinds of great things. And I have only great things to say about Eric. And go to Facebook and the web and look up Eric Wilder graphics and see some of his amazing work. Your work is still down at Whitecap?
No, that show ended.
Oh my
Actually, it did
God,
really
how does
well
time
too.
go so fast?
Yeah.
Time goes so fast. Oh my God. Well, there'll be other chances. But Eric, I wanna now bring this spin up to date. Now, I don't
Uh,
know how if you've gotten to watch any of these new TV shows, and there's two on right now on the Sci-Fi Channel, Resident Alien, and on Peacock, Rutherford Falls. And there's a third one that's going to be on called Res Dogs. It's going to be based in Oklahoma. The thing that all of these programs have in common is several of the writers are young Native writers. Stars are some well-known Native stars. They're contemporary, talking about contemporary issues. We now have some young Native people who are producing some of these shows, and a lot of them are women, but it's a mixed bag, and they're really funny, and they do mirror this history that we're talking about in a way that I know, having worked in with humor and worked with Charlie Hill for so many years, that humor can often hold up that mirror in a ways that can make a difference. And of course, we know the influence of television. So, have you seen any of these shows?
no, I haven't.
Oh
Heard of
God.
them, but I haven't had a chance to see any of those.
Oh well, you want to laugh. Some Resident Alien is really quirky, and it got renewed for a second season. One of the writers is a young Indian woman I've met, Tasba Chavez. She did a short film a couple of years ago called Your Name Isn't English. And it's kind of a documentary in a sense. She's a beautiful young woman, and she gets in a cab, and the cabbie says, "What's your name?" He says, "It's not English." And so she goes through this whole it's a short film about dealing with people who don't understand how can a beautiful young woman like her be an Indian? What does her name mean? And it's a really powerful film. And she has been mentored by Taika, oh gosh, I can't think of his last name, but a great producer, and he's done some amazing films. So we now have mass media having a chance to see things from the other side, not as a documentary, not as looking at all of us Indians as the trail of broken treaties and, those poor, sad Indians, So the Resident Alien, I mean, it's on the Sci-Fi Channel. I urge you all to watch it, but it's very funny. So this alien crash lands on the Earth, and he's here because his job is to destroy all the humans, and because we're, just a mess. And I guess I don't even know if his people want our planet. They just want to get rid of humans. And but he needs help. So he has to become a human, and that's very funny as he takes on a human form. And it's set in Colorado, so the Ute tribe is nearby, some of the Utes. And then we have Gary Farmer, who I don't know if you've ever met Gary, but he's probably your size, if maybe a little taller, playing a Ute. And he plays everything. I saw him play, he's played Hopis, who are small people. But Gary, and he ends up meeting a lot of Indians, and then there's these two kids who can actually see who he really is as an alien. So it's a very interesting, funny, quirky show. But when he goes to the res and he meets Indians, he suddenly starts learning about humanness and humanity in a way that he hadn't seen before. So it's very interesting. So, I mean, that's sort of the underlying theme is the Indians are humanizing him. And then the Rutherford Falls is on Peacock, and we binged watched that the other night. And that one is more contemporary in that it's set in a small town where this Indian woman, and it's kind of a first, she's a Canadian comedian, and she's a large woman, and she has the leading role on TV. And she's trying to start a cultural museum, and she's got a little room at the casino, and she's trying to make it into a cultural center, and nobody wants to help her. And her best friend is this white guy who's the last Rutherford, and his ancestors, what do you call it? Statue. The town wants to move his statue. And so he's all up in arms about that. And so the two of them actually are best friends. There's also another character that Bobby, who is this guy, this last Rutherford's his helper, they make history here too, because this is a non-binary person and interesting character who's helping the last Rutherford. But the scenes as you see how the woman interacts with the tribe. The tribal chairman is Michael Gray Eyes, handsome Michael Gray Eyes. He's the tribal chairman, and it's a successful, what are they calling themselves? I can't remember what the tribe calls themselves, but there's got this huge casino. And so there's that intertribal politics. And she has come back to the community with two masters from Princeton or somewhere, Yale. And anyway, finally, and Michael Gray Eyes as this, handsome, sneaky guy. Very funny, is always leading her around. And he says, okay, I'll help you. So here's the thing about the tribal stuff. Nobody in the tribe likes this woman. So he tells her, nobody likes you. You got to change that. And so he starts taking her around with him to meet a lot of people, and they all make her do things like wash their cars or paint their houses, or, all kinds of things to sort of humble her. But that's just part of the series. The real subplot here is who owns history and what is the history of that area. There is the Rutherford man and his ancestor history that he just thinks is, the greatest white people ever. And there's the tribe now who's very successful and very educated. And they're like, no, you can't say that anymore. This isn't your land. So so there's a lot of stuff that I think you and Karen, within the writing, because you've got Indian writers, the Indian writers also for both Rutherford Falls and Resident Alien, and I know with Res Dogs. Here's the thing that I want to get through to our listeners. Just because you have people like me and people who are writers doesn't mean that we can just walk onto any res and have carte blanche. It doesn't mean we can sit down and tell those stories. It means that we have to have people like Eric to tell us the story, to make sure we're doing things the right way. Excuse me. Let me turn this off. So there are, for the native writers who very much are groomed in their own history and their different tribal histories, they also have people from local tribes or from whatever the storyline is to make sure that they're telling the right stories, that they're presenting history in a way that is very much a native way. So if we have to do this for our own people, just like we have Eric on every month and we do other stories and interview other people, that's how important telling the stories are about Native history. And yes, we can laugh together. I mean, I really urge everybody to see these because they're very, very funny. I think I think as an Indian person, you will be able to laugh even more. Excuse me. Hi, I'm sorry, I'm live on the air. Can't talk to you right now. Okay, so there's a lot of, I wouldn't say secret stuff, but stuff that will really make you laugh. But I think it's important. It's really important that mainstream, well, it's not mainstream, it's, Sci-Fi Channel and Peacock Channel, taking chances to show with humor who we are and how we can get along, but how we have to understand who each other is. So let me know when you and Karen watch those
Okay.
shows. I
All
think
right.
you will enjoy them. But this, back to this whole thing of how do we tell the right stories? And
Yeah,
how,
that's like when I talk to students, I say, like my grandmother, she was our spiritual doctor, our healer, and she could cure sicknesses, and she was a very accomplished basket maker, and she was she helped develop a written language for our people, and recorded down all of our historical events, along with other tribal members back in the late 50s, early 60s, and recorded all of our ceremonies down. And the purpose for all that is so our people wouldn't be lost. Um, she had seen that our people were going to lose who they were, and she wanted that recorded so we could know who we are, and so that's what I see. I talking about writers, I had just was on a Zoom on the 30th, and saw Lee Francis talk. You remember Lee Francis, down with Arrogant Star, down at when we were down at the Big Wow
right?
comic. Yeah, well, for those of you, Lee Francis is he's a writer. He's a member of the Laguna Pueblo, and and then he he has the first comic shop, native comic book shop, Red Planet Books, it's called, in Albuquerque. And then he puts on the Indigenous Comic Con in Albuquerque, which is the first Native American comic book artists convention. And so when he was talking about some of the books that some of the Native comic book artists, they're telling those stories in a comic book form. Some are, they're superheroes, but they're, some of them have some of the issues that we deal with all the time as tribal leaders and things, and some of the concerns we have as far as rights, water rights, and things, taking care of the environment. They interweave a lot of that stuff into their stories, and that's one of the ways we do to educate people or start to open that. I don't know if you would say interest, or open people's minds into a modern take on storytelling, through that media. And other people are doing that. I do that through my artwork. Other people do it through their beadwork or basketry. It's an opportunity for all of these artists, whether it's music or culinary or whatever, they're, using that opportunity to teach about who we are, and using it more in a contemporary way to do that. So I think it's awesome that there are a lot of young Native artists and out there wanting to carry that on. It seemed like that interest wasn't there for a long time, but
It just seems like we're in some sort of new era all of a sudden. And, and Aragon, of course, does plays. And she's had a play, I think, premiere in
Down at
Tulsa.
the Autry, yeah.
Was it down at the Autry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember because I know she does a lot of her plays there. But yeah, there's some, when you talk about books, there's this new book out. It's uh, labeled young adult, but it's called The Firekeeper's Daughter. I don't know any Indian, adult Indian, who's not reading it. This author it's set in a Ojibwe reservation, and a hero in the book is a young Native woman, and very contemporary. Lots of wonderful history and culture in the book. And this author has been interviewed everywhere. I think she's been on all the morning TV shows. She's been on all the news shows. There's a new Facebook page for Indigenous people, Indigenous readers. And I missed the session with her, but I've heard her interviews, and it's just selling like wildfire. It's another, well, it's a mystery set on a res, and
Yeah.
very contemporary, and deals a lot with all the contemporary issues that we're all talking about, here. And but people are loving it, and again, I just read that too. It's just really been nice to be immersed all of a sudden in new Native literature, and the comedy stuff. The revival, I see the Indigo Girls have been reviving some Buffy St. Marie's song, very My Heart and Wounded Knee is making the rounds. So all kinds of things are just suddenly, I think, happening for good, in a good way. Going back though to the original conversation, what does its impact really have on tribes? I don't know. That remains to be seen. Will it make a difference in the next generations coming up as they get into not just tribal leadership, but with non-Indians? Will it make a difference if where we can come to a median point of seeing each other as equals?
Yeah, you know, that's a process that's been really slow for our people, you know. Um, Talking about how tribal government is, and um, I know outside entities are like, geez, what, you guys are, there's a lot of infighting, there's a lot of this, a lot of that, and it's like, well, this is a system that wasn't ours. And in my, I was tribal chairman in the early 2000s, and I saw that there was a lot of fixes that needed to be done, um, with the documents and the policies and procedures that were, put in place back in 36 when we established these tribal governments, and this was a system our people had no experience knowing how to do that. And then what I saw was there's things in there that just basically uh, encourage infighting, encourage mistrust, you know, um, and just the fact that there were there was rules in there, there was a procedure in there saying that if a woman from our tribe married a non-native person, they could not live on our land. And I'm like, why would our people come up with that? That I'm like, there's things in here that need to be changed. Um, and so that had to be done. And I'm telling you, I got a lot of criticism for doing that, but now I've heard people very appreciative of the fact that, they hadn't seen that as a necessity back then, but now being able to do economic development and other things within our tribal government, they're like, wow, you made that road a lot easier because these changes were made. But at that time, I'm telling you, I was criticized a lot. And that was painful, but it had to be done at some point in order to move forward. So, how do you explain that to non-native organizations that want to work with us? Um, and then with the fact that there is historical trauma with our people and a lot of misdealings with other governments and organizations, and mistrust, you know. So, the way I feel is like, I can sit back and just let our people feel that way, or I can try to build that bridge and uh, within the community that I live in, by uh, going out and being a presence, volunteering, like, showing that, hey, I'm part of this community, and whether you like it or not, I'm going to volunteer and help because I care about this community. I have friends here that are non-native that, and I care about people, and I'm not going to let that be a wall to stop me from being a contributing member of the community as a whole. And then maybe you'll see that, you don't have to judge us by the worst of us. We all still care whether we have all of this trauma we're carrying around and trying to do our duty as the creator wanted us to do as far as environmental knowledge and things. But that doesn't stop us from being human beings with each other.
Hey, Eric, have you ever thought about being on the Mendocino Supervisors Board?
I was asked, and I never considered it though. Yeah.
I mean, I know that you've probably had enough of politics, but and it's not easy because it's spending a lot of time from home and on the road, but it would be great to have your voice there,
Mhm.
to perhaps start making a difference in this time. Or maybe there should just be a seat for Native people on the Mendocino Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Just to back up a little bit for the listeners. So one of the things Eric was referring to, I believe, was the IRA, the Indian Rights Act, 1934, uh, and that is not every tribe is an IRA, is not what's known as an IRA tribe, but it essentially did establish a constitution, United States type of constitution and government system for tribes. And that brought with it, of course, all the things that we all have problems with as a nation, but putting them into the different tribal governments, making these different tribal governments. And it came out at a time, in some ways, it's one of those two-edged things. In some ways, it came out at a time when, because of the lack of help from the government, a lot of nations were literally dying and starving. A lot of them needed help and weren't getting the help. And a group of people that put it together were made up of politicians and Quakers and religious people and all, let's go save the Indians and help them find a way to save themselves. So not every tribe adopted this form of government, and it actually helped in some ways. I mean, and a lot of tribes, it did help provide some sort of functioning system for them, I think. But it did usurp the traditional leadership ways and the leadership traditional ways of governing as well. So it's one of those things that, when Eric and I talk about Indians, I mean, the number of laws and things that affect tribes and Native people, the fact that we weren't made citizens until 1924, all of these things that for all of us are just part of our growing up learning. We learn these things. The general public doesn't. It's not in your history books. There's nowhere you learn about anything other than what Geronimo, the Custer battlefield, and the Cherokee Trail of Tears. Only about the Cherokees. You don't know that how many tribes it affected and what happened there. So, it's not your fault for being, and I'm using this word in its truest form, it's not your fault for being ignorant about Indians. It's complicated. It's complicated. And it was all done on, behalf of the people. And so trying to work within that framework, and we've just mentioned a few things that affect tribes in this as Eric and I are talking today. So there's so much to unpackage for tribes to get their strengths back, for tribes to be their own, to take care of their own futures. And oh, and then the whole thing of being wards of the state, and some tribes that have to get permission, I think still today, don't they, Eric, to get
Oh
permission
yeah, for
from
sure.
the
Yeah.
Secretary of the Interior to make any changes?
Oh yeah. I mean, even just for an example, like KGUA, we had a couple of redwood trees that fell down right in front of my mom's house, crushed the cars. But the tribe was on, they had to wait for a week or two just to cut the trees away. The trees that fell, they had to leave them there until they got permission from the Bureau of Indian Affairs to remove that timber.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I hope her insurance covered that. That
Yeah,
they're
they're all seem to be okay now, but yeah, that was unfortunate. I was like, when you guys are just gonna leave those trees there, you gotta go, yeah. Then the government said, yeah, we can't do anything until BIA gives us permission to cut these trees away. It's
so
great.
that whole thing of treating Indians like children.
Yeah, yeah, that still goes on. I mean, and this is 2021. That's still, yeah.
It's, oh gosh, we can always go on and on about all these things, Eric. It's unfathomable to us as Native people to see this happening, whether it's in California and what happens with the tribes here, and what happens with the tribes in the southern part of the state or the middle of the state, or what about the non-recognized tribes? What about how history affects the southwestern tribes? All of that. It's different everywhere. Like Eric started the show by saying that every tribe is different. Every way you live is different. And yes, there's a lot of commonalities among all of us in what we see as sacred and important. But, and then there's still this desire to see us all in the past.
Yeah, and it's and it's frustrating, for me being when I was a tribal leader to see the Wapo tribe. The Wapo tribe still are unrecognized by the federal government, and for me, I'm like, why we've all known, all the tribes have known that those people have been there, and it's I don't understand it. Well, why aren't they recognized? Why do you have to recognize them? We recognize them. We all recognize them officially from our governments, but it's like the federal government is obligated to provide resources to them if they're federally recognized, but they refuse to do that. And then there's another tribe that they fought for recognition, finally got recognition, and then they closed their roll for any new people to come in and that are descendants of their people to be members. I'm like, why? You guys had fought so hard to be recognized as a tribe, and now you're closing your membership roll to your own people. I don't understand that. These people have a right. They're a member of your tribe, whether you're legally saying that they are or not. For what reason would you deny them? That's just disgusting to me.
Boy, we're just full of cheer today.
Well, I mean, that's the reality that people need to know, that it's not just spiritual and one with nature kind of thing with our people. We have a lot of things that we have to deal with too, to be honest.
And we only have a couple of minutes left here, but I wanted to thank you and your family for your artwork, in particular for the missing, murdered Indigenous women. May 5th was the date that all over the nations within this nation Native people were wearing red, or something to commemorate missing murdered Indigenous women, which happens right here in our backyard as well. It's not what's happening in Canada or over in New York or south in New Mexico here. And your artwork using your sister using it on a lot of your, do you have one handy, one of your
I
tumblers?
don't, not with me, no.
Yeah,
Yeah, my
I
sister's
just
great
think
on
the work that
cups.
you did for that, for missing murdered Indigenous women, is so powerful. Uh, it just brings tears to my eyes when I look at your art for MMIW, or now we're calling it Missing Murdered Indigenous People,
Yeah,
because it's not just the individual, it's the family, the community that's
yeah.
affected. And that's another thing that affects all of us as Native people as well.
Yeah, my sister Violet wanted to use it on cups, and I said, "Yeah, go ahead." And then she actually contacted the organization of MMIW, and she's giving them a portion of the sales of those cups to them to support that organization.
All right. You got about 10 seconds, Eric.
All right.
Anything?
Well, thank you. Happy birthday again.
Oh, thank you very, very much. And everybody's wishing me happy birthday. Hi, Karen. And just great love to everybody. So we're going to go. We're
All
going to
right. Thank you.
Give America Calling. Thank you, Eric. As always, be in touch. Hey, and maybe you'll be back in the studio live soon. That would
Well, I'll definitely be on Friday for 15 minutes.
on the 21st. Oh, thank
Oh
you
yeah,
very much.
21st. Yeah.
Fun drive coming up, folks. All about KGUA. Read about it in the ICO and be here on the 21st. But or you don't have to wait. It's on Facebook too.